It is officially 5 o'clock. So here we are once again for Camino Conversations. I am here today with Lois Bertram from Wapakoneta, Ohio. And I'm delighted to see those of you that have joined us here. And I'm delighted to have Lois as my guest. For those of you that are subscribers to the Camino Calls, you read a bit about the story of Lois venturing out on her Camino. And I'll have her kind of go over a little bit of that. But Lois, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. It's good
So
to see
let's
you.
Yes, I know. These video calls make things so much more interesting anymore.
Yeah.
To actually see people face to face. So Lois, I'm going to start out with tell us a little bit about when you first heard about the Camino, and then what made you go from thinking, "Nah, I'm beyond the time in my life when I could do that," to actually, no, I could do this.
Well, the very first time I heard about the Camino was Shirley MacLaine's book back in the day. I'm thinking like the 80s, not sure about that. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Being a solitary person on a good day or any day, the thought of being alone for that walk, I was fascinated with it. It just never left. And then periodically the Camino would come up in different things. And then I met you, and I met someone who actually had done the Camino. I mean, that just really was an amazing thing in my life to think that I knew someone who had actually done it. And then why I ended up doing it, of course, thought that was way past my time, was you. And you're just good. You just gave me confidence and, um, the feeling, yes, that I was in good hands and we could do this.
Oh, I want to dig in a little bit more though, because there were 3 years between when I did the Camino and when you said, "Oh yeah, I'll go do that." So what made you in the beginning of those 3 years, you were like, "Nah, I'm good. It's pretty cool." But how did that transition happen that you were like, "Okay, I'm going to actually do this?"
Okay, it was just this simple. You said, "Lois, if you ever wanna do the Camino, I'll do it with you." That was it. It was the invitation,
Ah,
and
okay.
I would never have asked, ever.
Mhm.
But the fact that you volunteered it, and then I had to stop and think and pause and ponder and all of that good stuff. And then it was just that simple. It was your
Okay.
invitation, and here we were.
And I think for a lot of people, because I've been on many Caminos now, and I've volunteered on Caminos, and I've met tons of people on Camino, and for a lot of people, it is that somebody they know has done the Camino, said you would like this, or their spouse or their friend or somebody basically put out the invitation. I'd like to do this. Do you want to come with me? And I've talked a bit in some of my posts about not everyone is the ideal travel partner for doing the Camino de Santiago.
No question.
So, can you tell us a little bit about for people that are considering doing this, and they're considering doing it with someone else versus on their own, or just with someone else in general? What are some things that you might advise people? Hey, think about this when you're gonna, when you're choosing someone to go on the Camino with.
Oh, wow. Hadn't really gave that any thought. Um,
Yeah, I threw that one at you.
yeah, but that is that's huge. That is absolutely huge. It's, um, you and I plan to be for 2 months type thing.
Mhm,
That's like
mhm.
a marriage. Everybody starts out excited and all that kind of stuff, and then you get down to the nitty-gritty and the feet hurt and you're hungry and, yeah. You actually, I think thinking about it like a marriage. I mean, are you gonna be able to get over the bumps?
Mhm.
'Cause it was hard. It was hard.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and there were so many I've had done a lot of traveling before taking on the Camino, but I had never had an adventure. I had always toured, and everything was taken care of, and I didn't have to worry and everything. And the Camino is an adventure. You just don't know what's around the next corner.
Mhm.
And, yeah, I'm not sure how you pick that person, uh, to be, but I
Yeah.
think you need to be aware it's just for you, it's like a marriage. You can love each other, and it's just great, and you've got a wonderful friendship, but can you get over hard times? And there are hard times.
Mhm. Yeah. And I've written a little bit about that too. I've met people on Camino who are like, oh yeah, my husband or wife is like 3 days ahead of me because they decided, yeah, we're good to be married, but we're not necessarily great at walking together 24/7 and staying
Exactly,
with each other and all of that. So I
exactly.
I usually warn people, and I think for you and I too, you need to have your downtime as well. I remember meeting, 2 women who started out together, and I talked to one of them after the fact, and one of them actually left and went home, and the other one stayed and kept going.
Mhm.
And she said the problem was that one of them thought the 2 of them were going to walk together side by side every step of the way, and the other one thought that they were going and they'll start out together, and they might meet people and then eventually meet up again, or so they had very different views of what the walk was going to look like specifically together. And so I think that's a good thing for people to be aware of and kind of discuss before before you head off. Um,
Yeah, I asked
so
that question of each other. What does it look like to you?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Great question.
Well, and I
Absolutely.
think so many people see The Way, the
The
movie
movie.
The Way. I mean, what is not inspiring about that? But it's a drama. It's not a documentary, and
Hmm.
it's different than The Way. The Camino
Yeah.
is different than The Way. Yeah.
So let's go there. Tell us some ways that you remember that your experience is different from the movie. What are a couple things that maybe stand out for you that they didn't talk about this enough or
Well,
anything?
it was a drama, and the story actually dealt with the people and their lives. It didn't get into the, nuts and bolts of walking. It didn't get into sore feet, and it didn't get into, um well, it did, I guess, at one point get into trying to find some place to stay that night, and,
Mhm,
um,
mhm,
you you actually, in my opinion, you actually didn't see the trail. The
mhm,
trail is not flat, and we actually would decide the next day's destination with the elevation chart.
mhm,
If it was a lot of up and down, we went a shorter distance. If it
mhm.
was more
Yeah.
flat, we went obviously longer.
Mhm,
Um, I would say the difference between watching The Way, which again, is a charming show and everything,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
is that it was about the people and not
Mhm.
about the trail as you were going to find it. So,
Got it. Got it. So let's go back a little bit and talk about before your Camino. Tell us about what you did for training and if you feel like it was adequate.
I do feel it was adequate. Um, living in a small farming community in Northwest Ohio, it's flat, and I walked 5 miles every day, and that ended up being okay, but it was not what I found when I got to the Camino. Um,
Mhm,
it it certainly built me up in the last month. I carried a backpack on my walks, um, but the Camino is so different in all of the different things that you walk on. It's not just pavement, which of course is what I find here. it's loose gravel and ruts and, grasslands and, um, ups and downs, and but what I found is once we got there, it took care of itself. The fact that I had walked 5 miles every day, um, had built my strength up, and
Hmm.
then with reality, we just adapted to it. You got to
Gotcha.
where 10 miles was, just 10 miles, 15
Hmm.
was, 15. So,
Yeah, your body adjusts to it. So I find a lot of people I talk to about helping them plan their Camino, depending on how long they're going for. So if you're going for a few weeks, people will say, "Oh, but I only want to do so many miles a day." And I explain that, yeah, if you're going for a few weeks, though, your body adjusts and you're going to be able to
does.
walk more the longer you're on Camino. So that's
Yeah.
something to consider as well.
Yeah, and
But
even for as long as we were gone, it still was enough.
Mhm. Yeah, good,
Yeah.
good. And for those of you just joining us, I'm joined here by Lois Bertram, who walked the entire Camino Frances, I should say, from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in France to Santiago de Compostela and on to Finisterre, over 520 miles. Um, at the age of 73, and she's taking us through a lot of her thoughts ahead of time, what it was like, and some reflections afterwards. So let's continue on with the questions here, Lois. One of the things you said to me is that at a certain age, health is your number one concern, priority, worry. What if you get sick? What if you get hurt? You've had some experiences with the medical system, both in definitely in France. And I'm trying to remember if we had any in Spain as well. But tell us about your experiences with healthcare and staying safe on the Camino.
I just think this is such a big one. Um, Anyone of age, it's always about your health. What if I fall? What if I get sick? No insurance, that whole thing. Well, I had overtrained, and by the time we landed in France, I was in pain with my leg, and you found us a doctor, um, and the experience was wonderful. Still had that dread of, "Oh, I don't have insurance, and what if this is," and all that kinda stuff. But the doctor was great, told me what he thought was wrong with my leg. He said, "We can X-ray it if you would like." And I thought, "Oh, that's gonna cost so much." How much would it cost to X-ray it? $30. So, opted out of that because I really felt that he had nailed it. He gave me 3 prescriptions, a s an ointment to rub in, um, an oral medication, and another oral medication to see that it didn't destroy my stomach. Went to the pharmacy, wonderful pharmacies in Europe, and filled the prescriptions, and it was $12. I may never get over that. But also traveling, hiking and doing all of that. The pharmacies were so important. I think they had a green cross. I think that's
Yep.
how you knew it was the
And it
pharmacy.
blinks. Yeah. Hmm.
And in their situation, if you had a problem, you didn't go to the doctor, you went to the pharmacy.
Hmm.
Told them what your problem was, and they gave you whatever it was that you needed. And I did through the way need to find the pharmacy, and always, always without question had the answers, and quick and inexpensive and on my way. I just can't say enough about their good healthcare there.
Hmm. And I will say, prices wise, this was 10 years ago, so they may have increased a bit since then, but still,
It might be
and the pharmacies.
35 now.
Yeah. And I do recommend that people have travel insurance, but I've also, told people the cost of going to see a doctor here out of pocket is not nearly what it would cost in the United States. So, and then I don't specifically know how much it costs in various other countries that people might be watching this from, but it's definitely something to be aware of, that it's not going to bankrupt you like it can sometimes in the United States. That said, I also always like to let people know that travel insurance doesn't just cover medical, it covers getting you back home if you need to,
Mm,
changing your plans, all that kind of stuff. So um, since our trip,
that's good.
I now recommend people get some travel insurance if they can. But the other thing I wanted to go back to is the pharmacies. It is the interesting thing too on the Camino is you walk into a pharmacy on the Camino and they have, the knee braces here and the blister treatment here. I mean, they know their audience.
Hmm.
It's not the first time they've seen a pilgrim on the Camino with injuries. And they will tell you if you do need to go see a doctor. But there's a lot of things that, I've seen pilgrims in the pharmacy with their boot and sneakers and socks off, and the pharmacist looking at the blister and being like, "Oh, here's what you need. You need to do this." And so yeah, it's a pretty amazing support system, not just along the Camino, but having living in Spain now, that exists, in general. But yeah, to reassure people that it is the support is there, but I also tell people do not assume anywhere in Spain that they will be able to speak English. Uh, so plenty of people do. I shouldn't say plenty. There are people who do. There are people in the pharmacies who do, but do not necessarily assume that you will be able to communicate in English from moment one fluently with someone necessarily. So just wanted to put that little plug in there.
That's
Um,
good.
okay, so my next question regarding health and staying fit on the Camino, let's talk hiking poles.
I would
There is
love to talk hiking poles.
there is debates out there. There's all kinds of opinions about if you should walk with them or not. And you and I share the same opinion. But go ahead and tell me your thoughts on hiking poles for the Camino de
I
Santiago.
love my hiking poles. Um, I went to REI to get equipment to go, and they have people there who wait on you. If you're a runner, they have runners help you. If you're a hiker, so anyway, I had people who were familiar with hiking and told them what I was going to do and that I needed a pole to steady myself. And they just looked at there was two of them. They looked at each other and said, "You need two poles. You have 2 feet, two arms, blah blah blah." That whole thing. Um, they were so light, you hardly knew that you even had them in your hands. But they taught me how to adjust them for me and how to put the strap on so if I fell, I didn't fall with them. And away I went. And
Mhm.
it couldn't have been more true. I don't know if I would have finished without those poles to
Mhm.
steady you, to pull you. There's so much um, up and down, and so much loose rock, and so much uneven. And they were just a godsend. I wouldn't go anywhere with my poles on something like the Camino.
And for those of you that are coming from faraway lands where bringing hiking sticks may or may not be something easy to do on a flight, a lot of people come to arrive in France, Spain,
Good
Portugal,
point.
wherever you're starting your Camino, and they buy them there. So you can definitely buy them in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port if you're starting the Camino Frances there. There are outdoor gear stores, and uh, when as I got to doing more and more Caminos before I moved here to Spain, I stopped bringing my sticks from the US and I would just buy a pair when I got here because it was just so much easier than having
Yes.
to deal with them abroad. So, and then the other thing about sticks, I will also, I always say this to folks, you can do whatever you'd like. I learned how to use hiking sticks on my first Camino. A kind other pilgrim kind of saddled up alongside me with his hiking sticks. And he said, had a nice conversation with me, got to know me. And then he said, "Do you want me to show you how to use your hiking sticks?" And I was like, "Yes, please." Cause they weren't, I didn't feel like they were helping. I felt like they were making me worse. And that's because I wasn't using them correctly. So, it's another one of those wonderful things about the Camino is people are there to help each other out. So I certainly appreciated that. But yeah, you can go to an outdoor store, you can watch videos on YouTube and learn how to use them for sure. My father, who is still doing Caminos at 77, he only uses one stick. I know people in their 80s that don't use sticks at all.
Mhm.
So to each their own, but I'm with you. um, I feel like I can go farther if I have the
Absolutely.
sticks.
Yeah.
Um, let's see here. So my next question I have for you is when you and I did our Camino together, this was, as I've said before, about 10 years ago. We both had this idea that the Camino meant backpacking. Nowadays, we both know that that is not necessarily true. So we ended up sending our luggage at that point, the US, or not the US, I don't know if it would work with that, with the Spanish Postal Service. But there are lots of companies that do that bring your packs to your next accommodation. So tell us, did you have some concerns about sending your pack? How did that process go? What would you say to people about that?
Absolutely concerned. It was the Postal Service, and I'm used to US Postal Service and not knowing if anything ever is going to arrive or how at what point. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. I couldn't get over, and I still remember the first time worrying during the day that, well, I'm never going to see my pack again, and it beating me there and waiting for me when I arrived. And then I will say the other thing that surprised me, I just assumed that on the Camino, you backpacked. I mean, that's just what you do. And we arrived at our night's lodging, and as we were checking in, I walked out and around luggage, and it just stopped me. Luggage? You're kidding. Was bicyclers, and they had already figured all of that out. They came with a suitcase and had it shipped place to place, and I never thought about that. You could actually do luggage
Mhm,
instead of
mhm,
2 pairs of pants and 2 socks and that kind of thing.
mhm,
Anyway,
mhm.
that was a revelation for me, but it the
Go.
service was perfect, and then you and I ended up just wearing a day pack,
Mhm,
um, with my rain gear. I never went anywhere without my rain gear
mhm.
for a reason, and, it was great. It was just great. It just literally took the load off.
There you go. I have to laugh. Sam wrote in there and said, "I think we're still waiting for a package to show up from the US Postal Service."
You
So,
bet.
but yeah, it's one thing that a lot of clients and other people that I've done Caminos with have remarked is that it's incredible the systems that they have in place, and also for people that are concerned, some people put air tags in their luggage and you can track your luggage that way and stuff. But I've always said to people, this is big business on the Camino. And if anything happens with these bags, word is going to get out, and that's going to be a problem for that company. So there are
Mhm.
numerous companies there. I haven't had a problem with them. I've tried at least, I don't know how many of them now, at least four of them, I think. And so yeah, it shouldn't be something you want to be too worried about. That said, though, I will caution people. I have had this happen twice where I have had people come up to me, um, both times when I was volunteering along the Camino and say, I sent my pack, I can't find it, and I don't know who I sent it with.
Ooh.
Yeah, so make sure if you're gonna send your pack that you know which company, take a picture, of the company's contact information or whatever.
Mm.
A lot of them you can do everything ahead and you get a QR code and all of that, but just a word to the wise for those of you that are
Mhm.
watching. Debbie asked a biology question, wants to know about going to the bathroom on the trail. So, what
Well, that happens when you get to the bar, and this just seems a perfect spot to interject the fact, water, be careful of the water you drink. Uh, we left one morning from, our lodging, and I quickly filled my water in the bathroom. Mm, and then it was a rainy day and had had my rain suit on. It was pouring down. It was a long way to the first bar, and I didn't make it. So I just pay attention to the water and um and go accordingly.
I would say too that it's funny because I've always filled up at fountains along the water along the Camino,
Mhm,
and I know people that refuse to fill up at any of them. Uh, they will say non-potable if they're not drinkable.
mhm.
Not supposedly, but yes, they do have those signs on them. But you can. Usually, I would fill up in the fountains, but some people would also just buy water along the way.
Mhm.
I always tell people. Uh, to just be aware of water. You want to make sure that you have it where you're going to get it and fill up
It
whenever you possibly can.
no small thing.
Yep. Yep. And then we have another question here. Let's see here. What time of year were you doing the Camino and how much rain was there?
Uh, Plenty.
And we were doing it in September. We started the beginning of September and ended at the end of October.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it was, uh the weather was great.
Hmm.
All in all, the weather was great. We got to the point where mornings were frosty. I was
We
glad I
did.
had taken gloves,
Hmm.
um, but I would never do it without, well, at least for the period of time that we were there, without a real, and when I say real, waterproof, not water resistant rain suit, and I wore that, and that's on our day pack. I never took off that I didn't have my rain suit
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
in my day pack, and
Just in case.
it poured. It
Hmm.
poured more than once, and, um, drying your things overnight is a challenge,
Hmm.
and your shoes never dry. You're just putting wet shoes back on in the morning, and, yeah.
And I will say for the shoes too, if you're most of my clients are staying in hotels and private rooms and things like that. The hostels know this, and so for those of you that are staying in other accommodations, you should be aware if you stuff your shoes with newspaper, it soaks up the water. And so the problem is getting newspaper. So in the hostels, they have piles and piles of newspaper for the pilgrim shoes. So I would recommend if it's a rainy day, go out somewhere and find yourself some newspaper, stuff it in your
Good point.
shoes. And then before you go to bed at night, take out the wet newspaper and stuff more dry newspaper in there.
Good
And
point.
that has helped a lot. Okay, so what let's see here. I'm just looking at my notes here. What are some things that surprised you about Spain when you were walking across it for these 500 miles?
Oh, well, the first thing that pops into my it sorta got me. The first thing that pops into my mind is how friendly. I'm I don't know whether the well, actually, I do because there would be times when people would come forward to help me and leave you standing outside the door or showing me where an elevator was and you were on your own type thing.
Yeah.
Um, just, um, they were aware and they were
Mhm.
kind.
Mhm.
Um, they wanted to help.
Mhm.
They wanted to engage.
Mhm.
And, and the other thing that sticks with me was we happened to go, I assume it was festival season. We saw so many festivals.
Okay.
We were in town after town after town with festivals, and those people know how to party. If you're gonna
Mhm.
get a room, don't get it on the main street because you will not sleep all night long.
Mhm.
But we saw bullfights. We saw, um, parades with those huge, uh, not puppets,
They're what would you call them?
figures,
Yes.
figures.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but what amazed me was there was always music
Hmm.
and there was always dancing, And it was the same. No matter where we were, it was obviously a national thing. I was so impressed with that. And I was also impressed with how involved children are in their lives and how many times, and it was noticeable, how many times I saw men with the children and the wives or mothers or whatever not even around. They were just, and they weren't on phones, they were just having a good time.
Mhm.
It was quite impressive.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, they clearly have a national sense about them.
It's interesting you say national because now that I've lived here,
Mhm.
um, it's actually I think it's more regional. Um,
Ah,
I
okay.
I had a friend, when I lived down in Valencia, I have a friend of mine down there who, his Spanish friend said to him, "Well, in your state, what's the state dance?" And he was like, "The state dance? What are you talking about?" Because but here in Spain, like, there's different music, different dances, different like, in Valencia versus where I live now up in Asturias versus where I'm visiting right now in the Basque Country. It's there are definitely um, regional clothes that they wear. I mean, we saw this when we were on the Camino, some of the festivals, everyone's in white with
With
red
the red,
bandanas and the red yep, and that's very
exactly.
much that's Basque Country.
Oh,
And that's
okay.
so you'll see that running of and San Fermin running of the bulls, you'll see that we saw a running of the bulls in some tiny little town, and I remember when we got into that town and they the Camino was blocked and everyone was standing on these gates kind of looking, and we went up to ask what's going on, and they said, "Oh, the Camino will be open again once they run the bulls." And they ran the bulls, and then they opened the gates, and we walked down the street to where we were staying for the night.
Mhm.
And I that was the first time I had no idea that they do running of the bulls in places other than Pamplona. Uh,
Exactly.
and so that was news to me. And I remember too, we went into that bar, to check in because it was a bar hotel above, and the guy took us the first guy, when I said, "We have a reservation," he kinda looked at me, and he went to talk to another guy, and they talked to each other, and then they came over to me, and they brought us around the back to the hotel, and the guy explained, "You're the only one staying in the whole hotel tonight. Because it's the festival, there's so much business at the bar that we normally close the hotel, but somebody forgot and took your reservation." So yeah. Um, so let's see here. So Michael asked, did your sense of time change while you're walking? Like, did days start to feel different somehow? Did you ever feel that you didn't know what day or time it was?
I certainly didn't know what day it was, nor
Mhm.
care. Uh, I really did. I feel, and not everyone would want to do this, but the whole point was to detach
Yes.
and
Yes.
to be there.
Mhm.
So I did not do the back and forth thing. What I did do was every day post on Facebook
Mhm.
along with pictures. And then to my surprise, when I got home, I could have all of that printed into a hardback book. And that is, in my world, that is no small thing. So
Mhm.
just be aware that that's possible. And it was easy to do because it was easy to post every day,
Mhm. Mhm.
uh, journal, if you will.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
We have another question here. If we had reservations for lodging every stop when we started, or was it more flexible based on day-to-day progress?
oh, that's an easy one. Day to day progress. And we made our distance, as I said earlier, by the elevation chart, how far we could go. But I think that's my whole point with all of the travel that I had done previously. You know, China, Africa, I mean, it was all planned.
Mhm.
This was my first adventure, and the adventure came in not knowing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and it wasn't obviously Rebecca did all of this, but it wasn't easy. finding a place. As soon as you got in, you had to figure out where you were going the next day and make reservations. And at that time, now it's probably changed in the 10 years, it was a challenge for Rebecca to find the next place. That was part of the adventure. Was, well, if that doesn't work, then where will we go? And
Mhm.
it
Yeah,
was
and
cool.
I will say for those of you maybe that might not have heard this earlier, um, we had initially thought we were going to be carrying packs and all that and once we realized, oh, we don't have to really do that. We can send our packs ahead, but if you're sending your pack, you need to be able to tell them where you're sending it to.
Mhm.
And so you need to know where you're going. The problem with doing a Camino like Lois and I did, where it was over a month that we were out there, you people will do it. And I have had clients that I've worked with that did plan every single day or we worked with a company to plan every single day. Um, and usually ended up regretting it because it's not easy to change if something comes up. If you have a hard day, you want to take a rest day. If, I mean, and this client, some natural disaster ended up happening. She couldn't get here when she was supposed to start. And so they had to reroute all her reservations. I mean, it just became quite a thing. I'm not saying now if you're just doing a week on the Camino, that I've done with clients, we just plan everything ahead. But still, you know, you have to be a little flexible that if something happened, you get injured or you for some reason you can't get to that town where you're staying, you have to be able to figure out what you're going to do. Sure, you could get a cab sometimes, depending on the route, depending on how busy it is. But sometimes you're going to have to pay for the cab driver to come from the big city to you to get you and then bring you to wherever you're going. So don't be alarmed if sometimes you get in a cab and there's already a tab running because it's not standard in every single little town for them to have a cab driver ready and waiting for you. So I would say planning ahead for every day definitely depends on how long you're going as well. But yeah, we did it a day in advance, and then we ended up doing a couple days in advance just so that it was a little bit easier. Um, and now that was 10 years ago, and I've done multiple Caminos since then. The amount of accommodations on the Camino Frances and the Camino Portuguese for sure there's a lot more than there
Mm.
were when we did it. So that first time.
And
Uh,
I will recommend not staying in hostels. And I would not have wanted to have missed that opportunity. I mean, it truly was part of the adventure about
mhm.
all of that. But for people of age, um, that doesn't work. So just take that one off your list.
Yeah, so I will say to those of you that are not sure what's going on here, some people think you can only walk the Camino staying at hostels, and it is not true. And it's one of the things I love being able to open the world of the Camino to people because I have plenty of people that say to me, "I didn't know that you could actually do the Camino staying in a maybe not a hotel, but a private room."
A place
Um,
with sheets.
a place with sheets, exactly. Let's just put that. Place with sheets and towels and a private bathroom. You can find that. Will it be the Hilton? Not necessarily.
No.
Um, but if it is an option and it takes a little bit of a different kind of planning, but
Mhm.
for sure it's definitely an option that a lot of people are doing these days as well. Debbie asked if you had a recommendation for boning up on Spanish or French.
No,
And that's because Lo- Lois had me with her, and
that's right.
I at the time, I'm trying to remember. I know I knew French at the time. I'm not sure. Can't remember if I knew Spanish at that point as well. Yes, I think I knew enough Spanish for us to get by. I had just started.
Listen, you knew Spanish. I would turn around and you would be talking to a farmer along the side of the road, and both of you so animated talking. Yes, you knew Spanish.
It was a delight to be walking with Lois too, because she would take pictures of me every time I was talking a foreign language with someone, and I didn't realize until we would exchange pictures every night while we're in bed. And it was just it was such a neat view that I appreciate you giving
Exactly.
me, because it's just a natural thing for me. But yeah, Debbie, to answer your question, from my perspective,
Yes.
I actually have, my guest in 2 weeks is Maria Secco, who actually, has her business is Spanish for the Camino. That's exactly what she teaches.
Wow.
Yeah, and so she teaches
Cool.
pilgrims the stuff that they need to be able to get by, or more than get by, specifically on the Camino de Santiago. For people that are looking to learn more in depth, I would highly recommend the website dreamingspanish.com, and the concept of comprehensible input. And the idea there is that you learn a language best, if you learn it like you learned your first language. So you remember, when we were kids, we listened a ton before we ever spoke a word. And so
Hmm.
that's this methodology. And it's how, when Lois and I went together, I learned enough Spanish to get by. And then, of course, I forgot it. And then since moving to Spain, I've learned it through comprehensible input, which is pretty awesome, because it's also a little crazy to me, because people will say, oh, the subjunctive imperfect, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I can speak in tenses because it sounds correct to me. I'm not sitting there conjugating because I've listened so much. I know how to say things. So that's what I would recommend for language. Um, okay, so let's see here. I know you had mentioned before, Lois, you want to talk a little bit about clothing for the Camino. Tell us
I
about.
certainly do. That was a mistake on my part. Um, per your instructions, we were going,
Mhm,
we planned for 2 months and everything. You said take two of everything: two pants, two shirts, two underwears, that whole thing, which didn't seem like very much for that length of time. But it, of course, ended up being just fine. But what I didn't do was um, purchase clothing just for the trip that was easily dried. I
dry
just
wicking.
took
Mhm,
what I had, was comfortable. I didn't care if something happened to it, but it was too heavy as
mhm,
far as being wet and drying. And
mhm,
when you're only taking that minimal amount, you need to be able to wash it and dry it. I still remember Shirley MacLaine talking on her trip about being the woman that walked with her underwear hanging out her backpack as it dried for the next day.
mhm,
Um, I should have taken more time and
mhm.
figured out quick, quick, because they have
Quick
that.
dry. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
and
Mhm.
but other
Uh,
than that, and I can't tell you how important that rain suit was. Um, if you're in a
mhm.
downpour, you need a rain suit, and
Yeah.
one that is actually waterproof. So
And by rain suit, you mean pants and a jacket.
exactly.
Yeah. Mhm.
And if you're
Um,
carrying a backpack, you need a cover for your backpack too.
yeah, yeah. Whether that's a day pack or full on. Yeah,
Exactly.
you don't want what's in there to get wet. I also tell people to put whatever's in your backpack, if you have anything paper wise, to put it in plastic. Bring some plastic bags to put your credential in, or whatever. Um, and then just another word on the dry wicking clothing is that laundry can be tricky depending on which route you're on. On the Camino Frances, when I've done it more recently, there are a lot more places that offer to do your laundry for you for a
Mhm.
price. You can, of course, hand wash. The problem in a lot of the private accommodations where we have our own rooms, our own bathrooms, is they don't necessarily have the facilities for drying laundry. So
Yes.
sometimes, you'll see people, and some of them will even have signs, please don't, dry your clothes on the banister, or or whatever. So you just have to be a little bit aware of, a laundry plan. If you're only going for a week, that's not as big a deal. But if you're going for
Right.
longer than that, um, you can indeed, it's not going to be impossible, but I would just say it's something to be aware of about doing laundry. if you're going to be gone for longer than a week and not carrying enough or not bringing enough with you to
Mhm.
survive for that amount of time. Okay, so we're at time here, Lois, but I did have one more question. So 10 years after finishing your Camino now, you're still walking 5 miles a day. And so we know you were doing that even before you started the Camino. Within 6 months of returning, you walked a half marathon. And I just wanted to know, looking back over these 10 years, do you have things that have changed in your life as a result, or things that you can say, yeah, that was the Camino that caused me to now think this way or do this, or any any reflections on 10 years later, what's different if versus like 2 months after you got back?
Well, I think anything with perspective, the longer perspective you have, the more you can see. And um, I think what the Camino did for me personally was I grew up alone in the country. So I'm basically a very solitary person. And I had lost all of that in life. I mean, you're just busy. You don't think about it. And I think training for the Camino and doing the 5 miles a day type thing was sort of a return to that being detached, hearing the door click, you're in your own world. And, I think actually doing the Camino was, um, a personal accomplishment
Mhm.
of having had that adventure and doing it. And, I will say that the highlight probably of the Camino was standing on the rocks at Musia. When I got to Santiago, it was the feeling of a job well done, but I wasn't elated. And I don't think I've ever felt more part of the cosmic world than I did standing on those rocks at Mucia and having
Mhm.
all of those days of walking and thinking and being in your head and finally knowing that you're just part of this grand cosmos. Um, and then to continue it, it just wasn't anything I was willing to give up when I got back. I still feel that way, and I often think about the Camino, and I do my walks the way that I did the Camino. I watch for the adventure. I watch for people to meet and see things to see, and I'm more aware. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. So thank you, Lois, for joining me with this interview. I know we're a few minutes over, but I appreciate everyone who joined us and stuck around. And for those of you that asked questions, and if we missed any of them, feel free to write a comment. This interview has been recorded and it's going to be posted. So if you're a subscriber to the Camino Calls, you will get the recording. If you're not a subscriber, just feel free to go to the Camino Calls on Substack and you can sign up to get the weekly newsletters and things like this, like these interviews. The next one the next live conversation I'm going to do is next Wednesday. I do them every Wednesday at 11 Eastern time. And that one, to be determined as far as who's going to be joining me, because I will be on Camino myself at that point. And then the following week, we're going to be joined by Marina Seco, who teaches Spanish for the Camino.
That's
So I'm excited
awesome.
about both of those. Yeah. So thank you again, Lois. Thanks to everybody who joined us. And I wish you, Lois, and everyone else a buen Camino.
Buen Camino. Bye bye.